Good afternoon, Family Business Center member, attendees, and guests. My name is Stella Primo. I'm the Executive Director of the Capital Region Family Business Center. We are a 501c3 nonprofit, and we have been organized for over a decade by family businesses that are interested in sharing resources and best practices on family business succession. Our mission is to help family businesses in our region grow and prosper. And so if you're not a member yet, consider joining this fantastic network of family businesses. This program is being recorded, and we should have the full recording available on our website by this weekend and definitely by Monday. And because you're a registered attendee, I'll get an email out to you directly as soon as that's available. So welcome to our first Generations Conference, Where Are They Now speakers series, where we take a look at previous generation speakers and we do a little bit of a check-in and see where we are, especially over this past year that we've been through. And moderating this inaugural fantastic event is our very own chairman of the board, Mr. Steve Fleming. And so with that, take it over.
Yeah, thanks, Stella, and welcome everybody. I'm very excited about today's program. We've got a wonderful speaker in Stan Van Vleck. Stan is a fifth-generation cattle rancher, and he's president of Vleck Ranch with operations in Sacramento, Amador, and El Dorado counties. He also owns and founded Van Vleck Properties, LLC, which owns medical, industrial, and retail commercial properties in Texas and Nevada. Stan's, if you know Stan, you know he's an overachiever by any measure. So in addition to running the family ranching and real estate companies, he currently has two other careers. He's a partner at the Downey Brand Law Firm, representing clients throughout the state on complex issues involving environment, government, and agriculture. Stan's been recognized by the Sacramento Business Journal and Sacramento Magazine as one of the region's top attorneys for most of the past decade. Stan also has a lobbying firm, Cal Connected, where he represents some of the world's largest companies, including Siemens. Siemens has recognized him as their top lobbyist in the United States. In his spare time, Stan's been involved in multiple leadership positions in our community, including chairing the effort to build the downtown arena and serving as legal counsel to then Mayor Johnson. Stan served for 4 years as the vice chair of the Sacramento Metro Chamber, where he headed up policy. He currently serves as general counsel of the Greater Sacramento Area Economic Council, otherwise known as GSAC. Stan has a bachelor's degree in agricultural business and, impressively, a minor in chemistry from Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. Stan, who does that? Who has a bachelor's in ag business and a minor in chemistry? Anyway, I guess Stan Van Vleck does. And also he graduated from UOP's McGeorge School of Law. Suffice to say, Stan is a true Renaissance man. And luckily for us, he's going to share with us today the really insightful and fascinating story of his family business with a focus on the transformation that is currently underway. Good afternoon, Stan.
Steve, good afternoon. It's nice to be here, and I wish I could see everybody in the audience. That would be much better, but appreciate everybody being here and supporting the Family Business Center and being here today. You know, it's not lost on me that it's been a challenging time for all of us, and you're busy people, and you've probably had way too many Zoom calls. So your willingness to step up and do this one more time voluntarily, I appreciate it. And Steve and I and Stella are going to do our best to make sure that we provide you some information that can help you and your family business in the future.
Okay, so with that, let's get going. When we last spoke at the Generations Conference 3 years ago, you laid out a vision and a philosophy for the multi-generational future of your family business. But before we get into that, I think it would be helpful for everyone if you could start by providing some background information on the foundation of the family business, Van Vleck Ranch.
Sure. Just briefly, we're a 165-year-old family business. Primary business for the first 164 was cattle ranching. And we're primarily located in Sacramento, headquartered historically Sacramento and Amador, El Dorado counties. We also have mining operations that are in that same region as well. And over the last 20 years has expanded on other uses of our land which have included large scale events and so on. And so really, that's been our primary business, and we create wonderful beef. We're in the French Laundry, we're in Michael Mina's, and who knows, maybe even the governor had some of our meat. You never know when he was at French Laundry. So it's been an honor to do a lot of different things, but that's our primary business that we've had, and we'll talk a little bit more about the dynamic changes that we've made. That for us has been part of the family business planning process, and part of what we've learned through the Family Business Center.
Okay, thanks, Stan. And I should have mentioned this up front. We'd like to make this as interactive as possible. So if anybody has any questions or comments, feel free to use the chat function, and we'll try and weave in your questions as we go. So with that said, and with that background information, thank you. Can you summarize the plan for the future of the family business that you laid out for us 3 years ago when you made the original presentation to our Generations Conference?
Sure. You know, I'm happy to. Let me, if I can, I want to throw a teaser in, because you folks sent out, I saw the information that went out on the emails to people talking about the challenges that we had. Because I think it'd be good we actually kind of lay that as a foundation, because we talk about what we did. That should be going through people's minds about the challenges that we had this year. And again, it's not lost on me. Probably a lot of people had challenges this past year, but just to give you an idea of what we had to go through and how the Family Business Center and the plan that we had developed with their help and others really helped save our business. So you may have seen in the teaser and the email that went out that we lost about 5 years of profits in 1 month because of COVID. You may remember when the slaughterhouses were shut down and all that was happening. Well, the beef business, it's a perishable commodity. That animal keeps growing. When it's time to go to slaughter, it's time. You don't have much leeway to be able to send it. And so unfortunately for us, when we had to sell and we didn't have that flexibility, prices had plummeted. And for us, it ended up in what was 5 years worth of profits were gone in 1 month with the sales of our animals. Secondly, again, 165-year-old business, and fire happens every once in a while for us. The most we'd lost in our history was 8% of our lands. This year, we lost 30% of our lands because of a large fire that was started on a neighboring property and burned through almost entirely one of our operations. And so you add to that, and then the final thing is that wasn't in the teaser, is where all of us are suffering in California, drought. And for us, it ended up significant. We ended up with about half the normal water. And when you look at the fundamentals of our business is simply taking grass and converting it into high quality meat. And that grass is produced by three things: sun, soil, and water. When your water's cut in half, your production is cut in half. So not only did we lose 5 years of profit starting off right as COVID hit, but this past year, because of drought, we've had a 50% reduction in the amount of forage that's produced to produce meat. And also then you crop off that a third of that land that was burned. So in essence, we're starting with about 35% of our input that we have with our operation that we would normally have. So it's awfully difficult for an operation to survive when you have 35% of your normal inputs after you've lost 5 years worth of profits. So that's the challenges that we had for us, which obviously were significant. Then going to your question about what we did with our plan, because without that plan, we would have been in tough shape. And the reason why we were successful is the conversion. And it wasn't because of some grand idea that we had, because we had no idea that we would have the significant fire that we had. We prepare somewhat for drought, best you can. We had no idea that there would be a global pandemic and all three of these things would happen at one time. And for us, without this plan, our business would have been in a catastrophic situation, because that would have probably ended up about 10 years worth of profits total that this would have cost. But why it didn't was because of what we'd learned through the Family Business Center and what we'd set up with our business plan. So with that said, we're going to talk a little bit about how we did that and what that entailed. First, you may remember, for those who attended the last one, we have three primary principles, or three columns that we build our business on. One, financial stability. And in agriculture, when I took over operations in 2000, we knew that we were very limited on our profitability. And it would not be sustainable to move to the next generation unless we change that. Over the next 10 years, we increased the size of the operation and our output by tenfold, which what we were hoping once we hit that point, we would say that we had hit that financial stability. Unfortunately, we found, again, it's agriculture, low margins. Yes, we increased our profitability by 10%, but 10% of those or 10 times those profits are still not a high amount. And so in order for this to be truly generationally sustainability, we had to do more. And then we took a look at family sustainability. That was one of the other key cores. And that's really one of the key ones we're going to hit today, and one of the most difficult. And that is, how can you make it attractive for the next generation to come back? That financial stability is important as well, but also it has to be something that someone's passionate about. But importantly, you don't want to drive that person to do it because you did it and your grandparents did it and so on. You may remember when Mark attended, Mark and I both spoke at the last event together. And Mark and I were on juxtaposed positions, and some of the same family members who are attending today may have that in their family, whether they're at the incoming generation or looking, at those who are going to be coming before them. And to say, am I putting pressure? Mark was on the opposite side. I was trying to work my way into the business and being told, no, it's going to other people. You're the youngest, you have to go do your own thing. Mark had the pressure on, well, he should be coming back. And what we didn't want to do is we wanted to make sure to bring knowledge to our kids about the business and make sure they understood it. But we wanted to make sure that they had to go do what they're passionate about and not just to follow in our footsteps. And there's a fine line on that. And a phrase that we've used with our kids is, we would love it. We would like it if you come back to the family business. We would love it if you do what you're passionate about. And love is stronger than like. So you need to do what you're passionate about. If it happens to be coming back to the business, great. If not, that's okay. And so for us, that was one of the most important things that we did. And then the other part on that family sustainability is really, we figured we had to be dynamic, because expecting the next generation to come back and follow in our footsteps and say, I'm going to want to work cows as well, whether our grandchildren or children, whoever it is in the future, that puts a lot of pressure on them. But it's also an unrealistic expectation, because again, we're 8 generations into this by the time our kids have kids, and 100, by then it'll almost be 200 years to expect people to do the same thing. So it doesn't make sense. And again, it puts undue pressure. So for us, we said, let's make a dynamic change. Not only are we going to try to be more profitable, let's try to be more flexible and dynamic in our business. So that's when we flipped it on its head. We brought in Mark Burrell with Westmark, who did a phenomenal job, brought in Mark in 2008. And we really worked hard for 6 years. It wasn't until 2014 that we developed a plan. We met every quarter. In the meantime, we analyzed every one of our assets. We said, what could we be doing differently? Our team was very helpful. Nicole, my wife, Nicole Van Vleck, has done a phenomenal job with their family business. Nicole was side by side helping us to find out what to do with our business. Our employees were, Mark was, and it was tough. And then it wasn't until we finally made the decision, we are not just an agricultural business, that we've got to say, we've got to be dynamic. Let's really focus on being a family business that continues, instead of being the same type of business that we are now. And once we let go of we're just in agriculture, that allowed us to really change significantly on what we're doing. And so once we started that allowed us to look into other types of ventures that we could get into that created more diversity with our portfolio, more diversity for the next generation to become a part of, and importantly, to offset the agriculture not making a lot, something that was much more profitable. And we did that with commercial real estate. And the third aspect of the business that we talked about before, which is just about what we're getting ready to get into now, because now we've set up most of the commercial real estate business and that's humming along really well. Now the profits that are coming from that is the third stage of setting up the investment company. And the investment company is going to be extremely dynamic, and that's going to allow the dynamics for the next generation and many generations to come, because that's going to allow them to execute on their passions. So they're going to have land use and cattle operations. They're going to have commercial real estate that they're managing and owning and working in that. And then finally, they're going to be able to have investments to be able to go, whether it's directly as angel investors into smaller companies, publicly traded companies, specifically in the area, if they're involved in healthcare, involved in whatever it may be, it's going to give them those options. And so now we've got a business that we believe will well past 200 and hopefully 250 years, because financially now we're extremely strong. We are now making from when the business took over, when our plan is done, and again, we're most of the way there, we're going to be hitting about 70 times more profitability, 70-folded. And so it's much stronger. And those are sustainable, not one-term transactions. Those are transactions that are set to go for many, many years in the future. So, and again, with Family Business Center, and especially Mark and others, it was helpful in doing that and working with, ironically, River City Bank and through the interactions you and I had on the first event, understanding that River City would be doing out-of-state loans. We started working with you folks as well. And it's really been a great relationship. But for us, it's been a long challenge, but we are extremely excited because this new company, commercial real estate, was much more the ones that we'd set up in the sectors were able to withstand COVID and were much more COVID resistant. So when our primary business was suffering and taking what could have been death hits, the other business was doing really well and financially surpassing our primary business. And so now all of a sudden we had our best financial year, when if you'd look on it on paper for our one business, it would have taken us under. So that's the reason why for us, you look at the dynamics that it did. And I wish I could say it was our grand plan that we set it up to create this type of stability. It was really to create long-term stability and transition. We had no idea that it would protect us just in a few short years after we set up this plan and executed on it, that it would likely save our business or at least help us through a very, very challenging time.
First of all, thanks for that, Stan. There's a lot to, as they say, unpack there. I'm just struck by the brilliance, frankly, without trying to stroke your ego too much, but the brilliance in recognizing that the quote unquote family business was not just Van Vleck Ranch, which it had been, for 150, plus years. And it's not that you're jettisoning Van Vleck Ranch. I know that you're totally committed to that, and that's a big part of your operation. But you looked at it and you said, we need to find out what's going to engage the next generation. And I think that was really important to figure out ways to get them engaged, because we all know that we do better at things in life that we're passionate about. And you also got the added benefit of getting some better risk management by being diversified out of the state. And there was a little bit of luck in there, but I also think there was some good judgment as part of that process. Although you should be dinged for not forecasting the pandemic. I mean, what kind of visionary are you? But we'll let that go. Nobody's perfect. Nobody's perfect. But and I also think it's worth noting that what you've done works for you and your family. I believe it does. Doesn't necessarily mean it's the right script for others. We know that every family business is a little different. What do they say about history? It doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. I guess something like that with family businesses. You need a very customized solution. But I do think what you've done has some great lessons in it. So first thing I want to go back to is the passions of the next generation. Can you talk a little bit about your children, your and Nicole's children, and their reaction to this so far?
Sure. Nicole, both our kids are business majors at Cal Poly, and we've had discussions with them as they've grown up, and we've tried to be we've been very candid with them, that it was expected of them to understand the business and to listen to things and understand how it works and to attend certain meetings. But we always said to them, it's your choice on what you do in life. This is your life. What we just want to make sure you understand is how this business works, because someday you may be a part of it. I mean, I had to buy the vast majority of our business, so I've been candid with the kids. They're going to have to buy their way in on my side for my family business. Nicole's is separate. But that's what I believe is appropriate, because I think that really tells you whether you want something or not, is you're willing to, put a stake in and put that risk up to do that. But having that discussion with our kids and really knowing the love that we have about our businesses, but looking at them and saying, we love you more, and it would mean more for us to see you happy than to continue the family business and have it keep going and have you be a part of it. And we've tried to have best we can those very candid discussions, while saying, it's mandatory that you understand it, because also what we want them to do is, if that time comes when they make the decision and we make the decision whether they should be part of the business, we want that for them especially to be an informed decision. And how else best to be an informed decision that you grow up interacting and being part of that decision. I mean, now the kids will help me, when we're looking at purchasing an investment property, they'll take a look. We'll look at the property itself, the region that it's going in, the industrial sector and others. And they're taking classes at Cal Poly that correlate to Nicole and my businesses. And we're telling them that's mandatory. But again, it's just because we want you to understand the business, but the rest is all optional. And that depends on their love and their passions and whether we think it makes sense for them to be part of the business. But it's really good discussions and having very frank discussions with your kids.
And one of the, the legs to your stool that is, I guess the least well-defined, but maybe the most exciting in a way, is this kind of venture capital pot. You said that the real estate is now generating quite a bit of cash. That's going to give you the financial flexibility to be able to invest in other areas that are passionate for your kids. Don't know exactly what those are going to be, but that could turn out to be 50 years from now, those investments could turn out to be the core of the business, right?
It could be. And that's kind of the irony and the excitement, because one of the things I don't want to do is have my kids be, and both Nicole and my kids, but to be in my shadow. And you say, here's what I did. I viewed myself as a tool transitioning from cattle ranching to beyond that. Now it's up to them, if they want to be part of this business, to take and go do magic and figure out what's great. They don't have to do what I did. They don't have to be near my shadow. They can do what they want to do, which I think is really important to a person. I don't need a clone. I want our kids to be and do what they are passionate about. I think they limit themselves if they say what I am. I have a lot of limitations in life. And if they go and explore and are passionate about what they want to do, and they do a great job at it, and they want to invest in it, and they want to invest first in the company to be part of it, and then want to run with it, great. I think that's awesome.
Yeah. You mentioned Mark Burrell, who does fantastic work with families up and down the valley. Can you talk a bit about that process, the early days where you were trying to figure this all out, and how you ended up where you did?
Absolutely. Yeah, I remember the first meeting, because for me it was pretty, there was some humility in it, because the first part of the meeting was really family dynamics and business dynamics and communication. And I'm the type of person that grabs something that goes with it. And I was doing a lot of things that wasn't communicating nearly as well as I should have. I viewed it as, well, I'm just saving people the time and have to deal with it. I'll deal with all those issues and I'll go do that. When people are like, yeah, but we don't know what the heck's going on, because you're just running and going and doing things. And Mark really pulled me back and helped and brought in where there were more people into the discussion process, which created a lot better thought, because there's more dynamics in our thought process. And so for me, what I thought I was doing people a favor, I was, pissing some people off, which I don't blame them. When I looked at it, I'm like, gosh, I thought I was just trying to help, and I didn't want to waste people's time. But really, I was leaving them out, and sometimes part of the process. So once we established committed times to have meetings every quarter, where we would go through and regimentedly go through, what's going on with every one of our assets, and then have that discussion with everybody, it created opportunities for communication and opportunities for new ideas, not just mine. Again, I'm a limited guy. And, to have much smarter people than I am and around the room and talking about it, it's awesome. And so that was, it really helped a lot. But again, here's something where I thought I was helping and doing all this, and everybody's like, no, you're shutting us out, not intentionally, but in reality. So it really helped a lot to understand the importance of sharing information and listening and taking a moment to share with others, and a good moment to do that, because it's a quality product and a better product when you do that.
Yeah. Now you mentioned pandemic, fires, drought. Beyond those, massive events, were there other obstacles that you've encountered so far that maybe you didn't anticipate?
Candidly, because I'm a pretty focused person, so I've been working to implement our plan, because we're doing this transition out of California, with, again, keeping main assets, but the rest of everything out, and acquisition of properties and things. That's most everything I've been focused on, and will be for the next year and a half, 2 years when we complete the plan. And so, it was like life in a blender, because of COVID, because when you're sitting down, when we're in the middle of a 1031 that started our 45th day to identify a property, was like 5 days after COVID really hit and everything shut down. And we're trying to identify a property. Unfortunately, the federal government extended it. But all these things that were happening, then it's like, figuring out, okay, your lenders, obviously everybody's, going, we're gonna have comfort. What do you buy that's COVID safe? All these things that were coming in, and what do? All the plans got thrown out, really, of, what the long-term strategy for us is, having diverse portfolios, who we work with. And we were working with sellers and having to do, and buyers, and everybody else's. It was, again, life in a blender. It was just truly being persistent. And the good news is, and we wouldn't say this until it's been tested. Now it's been tested. We had a good enough plan that it survived even these things as we went through it, to be able to finish the execution on the plan. Because it's important to have a good plan, but then you got to execute. Unfortunately, the plan that we put together on the execution strategy worked well, and it even worked through the blender of a COVID situation, fire and drought and everything else. But it was so focused that everything seemed to be 2 times to 3 times more challenging during the COVID time, just because of not knowing what's next. And because nobody knew what's next, people were taking overcautious views or not wanting to engage, and it was tough.
Yeah, I just want to remind everybody, if you have any questions or thoughts, feel free to use the chat function. So Stan, maybe on a more personal level, has this been challenging for you emotionally? And have you had any family members that have pushed back? And you may or may not care to answer the question, I guess.
And again, we're all really candid with each other. Having bought out 7 family members, and I was the only one in my generation then left, there wasn't a whole lot of people to push back with, so that helped. So really, it was looking with the next generation. My stepmom is a co-owner as well in the business. She has 1% of the business. She liked what was happening, because like me, she wanted to see the business continue and wanted to see the family business, and she respects that, wanting business to continue generationally. So the good news is, there was, we all got along, and it was great there. The challenge was the next generation with our kids. And thus far, that's gone well, because again, the candor that we've said is, we're going to educate you on this process. You're going to take courses and other stuff to make sure you understand it. But we're clear, and probably have this discussion once a quarter, if not more. It's your choice in life what you do. And I think giving that clarity helps with the pushback, because what's to push back for the kids? It's, they have their choice in life, what they want to do. And so, until, if we said things are mandatory, I can see the dynamics changing completely. If we said, we expect you to come back to the business, or, it's really important, we don't want you to let us down, or whatever it may be, or we've gone too long and it would be terrible to see our family business have to close, whatever it is. That's a lot of pressure to put on the next gen. And Nicole's doing great, and I believe this way as well. I'm not going to do that, and and she doesn't do that with her family business. And again, we keep our businesses separate, and I think it's their life, and I respect that. And so
and we want to make that as flexible as possible.
One of the things that we talk about periodically at the Family Business Center is at what stage does it make sense? At what time does it make sense in a young family member's life to have them work in the family business? And put another way, do you think it makes sense that they work outside the family business for at least a while before coming into the family business? Do you have a view on that topic?
We do. Nicole and I've talked through on what we would like. We worked through with Mark and what he's seen with others as we put this together. And we've had that discussion with our kids, really in two phases. As the kids are growing up, high school, college, and others, we still have them working side by side with them. But once they've graduated college, they need to go work somewhere else 3 to 5 years. And they need to actually be able to bring something back to the business for them to come back to the business. So it's not like just wait 3 years and you can come back. So they're looking at the clock if they want to do it that way. No, they need to understand, and we hope they do, that they need to bring something back to this business. And that's because for them too, because they don't want to feel like they're just part of it. And we're fortunate the kids that we have, both of them are independent. Both of them want to do things on their own. And we respect that. And so they want to be able to, if they do come back, they'd want to be able to provide as much as we have. And again, I want them to go kick my butt and get me out of the way and go do great things. If they want to come back, that's fine. And if they don't, I respect that decision as well.
Good. All right. We have our first question here from Jeff Cicchini. And Jeff is asking, good question. Do you think that the Biden tax plan will become law? If so, do you think these tax increases will be enacted for tax year 2021? Are you doing anything specific with these potential changes in mind?
Very good questions. What we are trying to do is, because also Biden has talked about getting rid of 1031s and the tax benefits of 1031s, we've ramped up the speed of which we're trying to get our 1031s done. The transitions and getting that. So the answer is yes. We've had a hard enough time dealing with California and transitioning and working on those tax plans to make sure we do things right here. And obviously everything's lawful and by the book. And so as we get to the Biden tax plans, as it unfolds more, we're going to have a better idea of what we do. But the main thing has been making sure to move forward because of the 1031s and to accelerate what we're doing.
Okay. All right. And can you talk a little bit about your thinking with the out-of-state investments in commercial real estate and the diversification outside of California, how big a factor that was for you?
Life-changing. And I don't say that mildly, because in 2017, when we first invested in Texas, it was truly for an investment. And when we saw how things are done there, and I don't want to be tough on California any more than that things are, when we saw how efficient things are from a business perspective for getting buildings built, for working with the governments, and how they were business friendly and tried to be able to assist versus how complicated things are in our state, it became a discussion instead of, do we move? And to Nicole's credit, she was willing to listen to me after we started seeing how different it was and how the benefits of this. For us, it started being where I really wanted to put more and more assets out of California to create a diverse portfolio. And again, still love California. California is where so much of our roots are. But just like any good prudent portfolio, whether it's stock portfolio, whatever it may be, the importance of diversity is really key. And so for us, when we saw that they have such different views, it really means, really good business opportunities in other states as well. California is always going to be special because of what it provides, but there's all these challenges now that are there as well. So if you invest in other areas as well, and that diversity of your portfolio, it was enough for us where we headquartered out. We made a life-changing move after 165 years in California, headquartered in Nevada. And that was a big deal, and are residents of Nevada. And so, but again, California still in Nicole's business and everything is still not changed. It's still firmly committed in California, and as are we for our ranching operations. But we are going to now be much more diverse. And I hope California changes its course and comes back to being a more business-friendly place. Would love to be able to expand businesses in California, but that's their choice.
Commercial real estate is a big ocean, and there's all these different asset classes within it: industrial, office, retail, multifamily. One area of commercial real estate that seems to be disruptive, at least to a certain extent, from the pandemic, is office space, and the potential that the relationship between employees and the office is going to be different going forward. Do you have a view about how that's going to look going forward, and therefore the demand for office space, and how does that view factor into your investment decision making?
The answer is yes, I do have a view. And ironically, even before COVID, I used to chair Downey Brand. I came to leadership in Downey Brand and sat down with them, and I'd spent quite a time reviewing it. I'd recommended that we reduce down our footprint by about 50%. And this was several months even before COVID hit, because of the transition and the ability for employees to be able to work from different environments. So I've promoted that for a while. So I'm a believer, and that's just reality. And I didn't come and present that because I thought it was a lifestyle change. I thought for competitiveness, the ability to continue to keep our overhead lower and to be competitive, provide great legal services, but do it at a really competitive price. Because, in a simple business like the law, you only have a certain number of areas where you can invest in. So it's either your infrastructure or your people. Well, I always want to put great money towards people and less towards your overhead. And so I'm a firm believer, and that's where we're going. And I think, again, I'm not a genius on this. We've seen it all. COVID has really accelerated that.
Yeah, for sure. It's interesting because obviously we both talk to a lot of people that run businesses, and I still would say there's a decent segment of those folks that are pretty adamant that they want their employees back in the office full time. And I'm not in that camp. I think that's going to cause them to lose people, and it's going to cause them to have trouble recruiting people. And I'm not convinced that it improves productivity. But I will say, in support of that camp, that there are certain things that go on in an office that you can't get if people are physically removed all the time, including training, young employees, new employees, cultural transfer. Those things, you lose something, I think, if you're not in person. What are your thoughts on that?
I agree. Actually, when I made the presentation to our management at Downey, that was one of the key areas that I said we still have to build around. Mentoring is key. If you're going to have really great people at what they do, you have to train them, and they have to see people. They have to be around it. They have to be in the deal when you're at the table and you're working things out and you're strategizing. So the answer is yes, I agree.
Okay. All right, we have a new question here from Charles McGilligot, and it reads as follows: with a vision of 250 years of existence for a family business and the possibility of a generation not interested in coming back into the family business, have you planned for third-party management succession?
Planned? No. Thought about it? Yes. Because we've now created this new dynamic and we're executing on the plan to have it established. Once we get this entity built and we have the investment company up and going, then the next phase will be pivoting and going, how can we keep it going, and setting up a system where if a family member is not interested, we'll be able to bring in someone from the outside. So the answer is we'll be getting there. We're just not there yet.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, good question. So is there anything that we haven't asked you yet that we should have? Anything that you want to share that we haven't covered already?
you know, to go back on something for families, because this was probably the most challenging, as we talked about with my family, Nicole's family, and others, in terms of how we're dealing with was that decision we talked about earlier on, are we a family business or are we an agricultural business? And making that decision to allow us to go beyond that, that's a hard thing. And so when others are looking as a family business on what they want to do, and I recommend at least trying it and see how it goes. You can always, I think you can put the genie back in the bottle on that one, but it allows for a completely different process, because for the first 8 years, and again, we increased our business by almost 10 times in agriculture. We still just weren't there. And for the next generation, it was really narrow on what they had the ability to do. And so it took us a long time to get to there. And again, 6 years of planning after that to come to this idea of this is what we need to do. And so, but once we opened that up, it puts everything out there as an option. Doesn't mean you have to accept that option, but it does give you the ability to really look at it, move that Rubik and see if it works. And if it doesn't, set it aside. But if that Rubik does work for you, fantastic. But don't limit your options.
Thank you. Okay, we've got a question here from Mark Wilson. He says, if you can, talk about how you were able to convince 7 family members to sell. Did you just concentrate on getting majority ownership and that the other owners could then see the game was changed? It's hard to imagine an ag operation based primarily on livestock supporting 7 families.
Well, one, I can't speak a lot about it because some of it involved litigation. And so, but Mark, the point you made about you can't imagine 7 family members being supported by this ag operation couldn't support two family members 20 years ago. And so that helped the discussion. And we really tried to be fair on how we do that. I think people really looked and said, you know, in essence, I haven't gotten a dividend in 20 years because it's an ag operation. We just have to keep putting the money back in for repairs and how things are going. Do I want to take it cash out? I can put it in buying a home. I can invest in a business. We have family members buying businesses, whatever it may be. And, you know, people I think said, I'd rather have an opportunity to have a capital outlay versus very small dividends, if any, that come from an ag operation.
Yeah, good question. Good question.
Yeah, it was a hard one.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of tough ground that you've covered here, and I want to commend you. I think there's real brilliance in what you've done on a variety of levels, including the risk management, the engagement of family members, the looking forward, and that definition of family business not being agribusiness, but maybe something different. I think that's absolutely terrific work on your part. So I highly commend you. We've taken up enough of your time. Great to hear your thoughts. Thank you very much, Stan. And thanks to everybody for participating in this Family Business Center event. We look forward to seeing you at our next event. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone, for attending, and reach out to me if you have any individual questions. I'm happy to try to help. We're all in this together.
Bye. Thank you.